Speaking about the gun violence that's taking place in this country, and the left and all of their supporters harping on the fact that we need to enact gun laws and so forth to prevent people that should not be able to get guns if they're mentally unstable, if they show any sorts of traits of violence or anger or something like that, which could lead to them possibly going out and purchasing some sort of assault weapons to essentially take vengeance on people, innocent people and so forth, and children and things. We have to remember something. I've said this before on quite a few occasions, that most of the problems that we have in this nation today were orchestrated or are the result of the policies of the left. Yet when these things manifest themselves, who is it that gets the blame? The right, the GOP, and the like. Classic example. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, when Hollywood and I guess a lot of these video game makers started putting out all of these action movies and video games that essentially were geared towards showing violence, using all sorts of assault weapons, specially made assault weapons and machine guns and things, and going around killing up the bad guys or killing up people that the shooter essentially targeted for whatever reason. When preachers like Jimmy Swaggart and a few others back then were talking about the effect that this would have on society, the left and Hollywood, which were making big money off of these things, were saying, oh, it's just entertainment. There's no real deal, no real problem about this, that, and other. Look, the statistics show, see, ain't nobody out here doing all these mass shootings and doing this, that, and other. Nobody's getting all these assault weapons and things. Oh, it's just your imagination. And everybody laughed it off. Fast forward to today, and what do we have? Mass shootings everywhere. People going into schools, gunning down kids and carrying on. Using all sorts of specially made or adapted assault weapons. Guns that can fire 100 rounds or more a minute. Some of them from being made that way, and then other adapters that you could put on the weapon to get it to fire that large capacity clips to handle all sorts of a number of bullets and things like that. 20 bullets or more, something like that. All of this stuff is being manifest, and what's being said, that it's the fault of the right, the GOP. But experience has said before, as I'm saying now, that the problem is that the left always seems to be, or it's not they seem to be, but they are actually orchestrating this stuff for the sole purpose of getting laws passed to essentially get guns out of the hands of everybody. Doesn't matter whether you are classified mentally ill or whatever, because let's take this to this classic example about this so-called red flag legislation that's supposed to be going through Congress or something to get them passed, where according to my understanding of it, is that if you show any, give any indication that you are mentally ill or something like that, your guns can be taken away from you. In other words, if you have any guns, that if somebody says, well, so-and-so is showing signs of maybe dementia or something like that, the police can come in and take your guns from you. Now, everybody say that's common sense legislation. But think about this for a minute. In the political spectrum, as far as the left is concerned, if you disagree with the left on anything and you stand up and start showing that you're angry at about what they're trying to do, they could very easily get somebody to classify you as being on the verge of a nervous breakdown or mental illness or something and come in and get your guns. And as the left has, well, you know, it's not really that surprising, as the left has done in the past. They set up a lot of these things just so that they can get support to get these laws passed. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have a snowball's chance in hell of passing. But you get enough people to go out and commit acts of violence and so forth, killing up people and children and so forth, and carrying on, and the public gets outraged. What's going to happen? People are going to start acting on emotion rather than common sense. Common sense would tell you that people that are prone to commit mass shootings and so forth, usually, unless they're completely out of their mind, would usually go to some place where they know they will not meet any type of resistance, especially any resistance that is equal to what they're about to try to do. In other words, if I have an M16 or AR-15 or one of these other assault weapons, I'm not going to go into a place like a police station where, you know, that place is armed to the hilt. I'm not going to necessarily try to attack a police car with two police officers in it in uniform. I'm not going to try to rob or assault a police officer on the streets if they're in uniform, because of one thing. Hey, they're armed just like I am. No, I'm going to go to a school. I'm going to go to a theater. I'm going to go any place where I know for sure that I'm going to have free access to victims for no other reason than the fact is that they won't be able to fight back because they don't have anything to fight back. And what does the left want to do? The left wants to pass laws to make sure that I, as a shooter, have all these targets free of opposition, that I can do my thing with impunity. This thing about in Charlottesville, I think the person that ran them people down at the Charlottesville thing was somebody that supports the left and wanted to give the left one more case that they can use to say, see, we need to have these laws. These shootings in these schools, a lot of those shooters support the agenda of the left. And why are they getting like this? It all goes back to Hollywood and so forth, because the left is portraying the right as being the enemy. And what happens in these video games and in Hollywood when some crooked politicians or something is being getting away with harming society or something, what happens? Some crusader comes out and guns them down. And that's what's happening here. Look what happened right after Charlottesville with the Republicans. They were playing a baseball game or practicing a baseball game on a baseball field or something like that. And this one guy goes and asks a person, are those Republicans out there on the field? And when the guy said, yeah, this person went out and started shooting up these congressmen and senators and so forth. One of which was Bob Scalise, I think his name. I know his last name is Scalise. I don't know what his first name is. But that was somebody from the left. So Hollywood and these other makers of these video games are just as culpable, if not more so, for orchestrating the type of environment that we find ourselves in today. And that is an environment where if you disagree with the left, you are the enemy and you need to be destroyed by any means necessary. Is that hitting the point to you, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and the rest of you Looney Tune Negroes that put your support behind this nonsense?